people are talking about North Carolina firing Mack Brown, and it is kind of an interesting twist that happened. But Steve-O says you would have thought he'd have just walked off first fired. Pride. Yeah, that's true. I do remember Derek Dooley just saying, I'm not going to coach the Kentucky game after the loss to Vanderbilt in 2012. Butch Jones wasn't given the option. He was just fired midseason. And Brady Hoke finished the year. So that happened. So another comment, figured he'd be told to either step aside or you're fired. Like to see him have stepped down. He's 648 years old. That is very true. So Mack Brown being gone is kind of the highlight right now. And again, how this affects Tennessee, we just don't know. Could affect Tennessee on the recruiting trail. Again, I've always felt that Tennessee and North Carolina could be a dangerous rivalry to a certain way. Because if North Carolina ever got into the SEC, and the rumors are they want North Carolina. That's always been the rumors, is they want North Carolina. Don't know if they'll get them in there, but they want them. North Carolina could be a huge, huge get for the SEC in a new market. And that could actually help propel them to kind of stave off that DMV, North Carolina, Atlantic Coast recruiting ground. And that's what Tennessee wants the most. So Mack Brown getting fired could actually hurt. Could actually hurt Tennessee. I mean, could. So we're just gonna have to see what goes on the rest of the way. But I would say right now, North Carolina firing Mack Brown, everything's up in the air on how it'll affect Tennessee. Depends on the hire they make. It also depends on the conference they end up finding themselves in. We don't know any of this stuff yet. So taking that into account, it's really hard to project at this moment what would be done. So we're going to have to see. North Carolina is definitely they could definitely be a threat to Tennessee. Steve-O talking about Tennessee having a better resume than Texas. Yeah, we're going to talk about the college football playoff a little bit tomorrow after the rankings tonight. But it's, there's a lot in play with that. There's a lot of questions. We don't know for sure where Texas would end up if Texas lost to Texas A&M. But I would say Texas losing to Texas A&M would probably knock them below Tennessee. And that's probably a big rooting interest. We'll talk about the rooting guide for Tennessee later in the program. But yeah, Tennessee could want to root for Texas A&M this weekend. And Texas A&M losing to Auburn only further helps that. That's a big benefit to Tennessee as well. So there's a lot working in Tennessee's favor with this North Carolina, with the college football playoff as well right now. The big thing for Tennessee, though, again, it's very rare, it's underrated, but the committee does, even though I don't think they watch the games, I think they look at resume. And so because they look at resume, I think you really should dive in to see what they do with NC State and North Carolina. Because if NC State wins this weekend, that's a Power 5 team that Tennessee blew out 51-10 at the beginning of the year. And that looks really, really, really good on Tennessee's resume. Tennessee, by the way, is, for a quick stat of the day, Tennessee is the only team to give up as few points as they've given while also scoring 50 points or more against 4 opponents. That's kind of an interesting stat. Just thought I'd throw that out there. They have been a complete team. Now they do beat up on the lesser teams. It's kind of an interesting point. Pat Forty reporting that they want Greg Schiano, North Carolina. Wait, is that a joke or is that real? Guys, I'm sorry. This is happening real time. So I don't know for sure if that's the truth, but if that is, that's hilarious. So we're going to have to see how that happens. But yeah, one of the Greg Schiano, by the way, may make our football IQ for this weekend. So we're just going to see how that goes. But yes, Schiano may make our football IQ. We're there was a pretty dumb boneheaded decision that he made on Saturday that I don't think you make in these types of situations. So we'll get to that though. Kind of interesting. But yeah, it'd be really funny if they actually went and tried to hire Greg Schiano. That would be hilarious if North Carolina did it. I can tell you this, Tennessee probably wouldn't have trouble recruiting at that point. So, we'll see how that works out. Portions of the program are brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org. That's right. Go to AsiaCafe.org. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell. Turn your notifications on. Again, hit the thumbs up. Tell a friend. Leave a comment. Doing this rolling solo today, so helps a lot when you guys can feed off what I'm doing, and we can feed off each other. Fox Squirrel says North Carolina is like Kentucky basketball first. Yeah, but I think North Carolina does see the value in generating revenue football wise. I do. So I'll tell you this: if the ACC breaks up and that ironclad grant of rights deal fails, don't sleep on the idea that North Carolina gets into the ACC. Virginia, I still think maybe the top team to get to the ACC because they generate even more revenue than North Carolina. But North Carolina and Virginia together, that's kind of an intriguing. I think that's where the ACC is going. Everybody talks about Clemson. Everybody talks about Florida State. Everybody talks about maybe Miami. I think if you're the SEC, if the ACC breaks up, your biggest goal is to try to figure out a way to get Virginia and North Carolina. And I've heard that they really want North Carolina. And for those who don't know, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Greg Sankey graduate North Carolina, guys? You guys check me on that. No, he did not. I apologize. But I've heard that they really want North Carolina. Want to bring in this guy real quick. Guys, please welcome to the show, John Adams. John, sorry, I'm working on a few. I'm dealing with this new software right now, and I feel like I'm the boomer between us. One more second. There we are, John. You there?
Yes, there I am. Nice work, Caleb. Is this something you can blame on COVID?
Oh, the software issue?
Yeah.
No, Restream.
Most people blame everything on COVID that's happened in the last 4 years.
That is true. They do. No, Restream just changed the software up on us mid-season, and typically I need like a weekend to play with the software to learn it, but it's football season. I don't really have time to play with it during this time. So that's a pretty funny situation. John, we were just talking before we get going. I don't know if you saw North Carolina. Mack Brown said yesterday he intends to return next season, and North Carolina said today, no, don't bother returning. So they fired him. So do you think that impacts college football or Tennessee at all?
It could. It seems like everything impacts everything else now. We see recruits. We're coming down the home stretch of recruiting, and people, commit, decommit. I just saw where running back from committed to Southern Cal is now committed to Tennessee. So I'm sure there will be some fallout from that. Mack Brown is one of those coaches. He's very personable. I think probably you always say a recruit should sign with the school, not with the coach. Sounds good, but that's not what happens. The coach is the one with whom they develop a relationship, and Mack has got very good people skills. And I'm sure there's some players that were going there not simply because it's North Carolina, because Mack Brown is the coach there. I don't usually defend coaches in their comings and goings. I hardly ever do. But Mack Brown's done a lot for North Carolina football. He did a lot on his first time around there. He really bulked up that program. Not as much this time, but I'm kind of surprised that they would fire him. I don't know what the status is of his contract or how that plays into it. But he's done as much for North Carolina football as anybody I can think of, and since I've been covering the sport.
Yeah, my one guess is I think that, so I was telling before you hopped on air, I know some reports if the ACC were to collapse and the SEC tried to expand, I've heard that they would go for UVA and North Carolina before Florida State and Clemson. And I think North Carolina might be jockeying to try to get into the SEC and maybe think, okay, maybe they think if they do that, they could take a next step in football if they did that.
That's possible. I think the SEC is. We always talk in terms of Florida State and Clemson when we think things like good fit for the SEC, that sort of thing. But the SEC looks at it differently. It looks like it from through a monetary lens, and North Carolina's brand is very strong. Clemson certainly has a better football program, always has, and I think Clemson is very much an SEC type school. But yeah, the SEC wants North Carolina, and you're right, it probably wants Virginia too, even though Virginia's football pedigree doesn't justify playing in the SEC.
No, not at all. Not at all.